Chapter 35. The Son of Heaven consults a worthy man, but Chuang Shao Kuang declines all posts and goes home. As soon as the stranger leapt down from his mule to prostrate himself, Chuang alighted from his carriage and knelt down to raise him up. "Who are you, sir?" he asked. "We have never met." The stranger rose to his feet. "There is a village a mile in front, sir," he said. "If you will allow me to accompany your carriage there, we can talk in the inn." "Very well," agreed Chuang. He mounted his carriage, the other mounted his mule, and together they made their way to the inn, where after exchanging courtesies they sat down. "In the capital I calculated the time it would take for the imperial summons to reach Nanking, sir, and reckoned you should be arriving any day now," said the stranger. "So I rode out through Chuang Yu Gate to accost all the mules, seat and chairs and carriages on the road, and at last I have found you. It is a privilege to meet you." "What is your honorable name and place of origin?" inquired Chuang. "I am Lu Hsian Ho of Hu Kuang. As a young man, I determined to collect the works of all the famous scholars of our dynasty, and in 20 years I have virtually accomplished my aim. But because Cao Ching Chu, one of the 4 great men of letters at the beginning of our dynasty, was executed, none of the collectors keep his work. In fact, I found only one collector in the capital who had them. I came to Peking, purchased this book for a high price, and was on the point of returning home when I heard that the emperor had summoned you, sir, for an audience. Since I read the books of old writers who have turned to dust, I felt I must not let slip the chance of meeting you, one of the worthiest men of our generation. And so, after waiting for some time in the capital, I came out to make inquiries for you along the road." "I was staying idly in Nanking with no desire for an official career," responded Chuang. "But when His Majesty deigned to send for me, I had no choice but to come. I am delighted by this unexpected encounter, and only sorry we must part so soon. Let us put up in this inn, and tonight we can have a good talk." They proceeded to discuss the works of well-known writers. "Your interest in old books shows your respect for learning, sir," said Chuang. "But it is better to have nothing to do with forbidden books. Although there is nothing treasonable in the writings of Cao Ching Chu, since Emperor Hung Wu took a dislike to him, and his works are now banned, I would advise you not read them. My view of study is this: one should first read widely and then specialize. The main thing is to think for oneself. If on your way home you will honor me with a visit, I have some writings on which I would appreciate your advice." Lu Hsian Ho accepted this invitation. The next morning they parted, Lu setting off for Nanking to await Chuang's return. Chuang entered Peking by Chang Yu Gate and put up in the Protector's Temple. At once Vice Minister Hisu sent a servant to wait on him, then came in person to pay his respects. "Did you have a hard journey?" asked the Vice Minister. "I am a countrified fellow, unaccustomed to travel," replied Chuang, "and I felt like a willow withering at the approach of autumn. Because I was exhausted after the long journey, I neglected to call to pay my respects to you, yet you have honored me with a visit instead. I hope you will make ready as quickly as possible," said Hisu. "In 3 or 4 days you will probably be sent for." It was then the first of the 10th month of the 35th year of Jie Qing. 3 days later, Vice Minister Hisu sent over the following imperial edict, copied out by the imperial chantry. "On the 2nd day of the 10th month, the imperial chantry received this order from the emperor. Since succeeding to our ancestors' great task, we have sought day and night for talented men to strengthen our government. We have heard that a good sovereign reveres his ministers as teachers. Indeed, this has been proved true since ancient times. To manifest this principle, therefore, we summon Chuang Shao Kuang, recommended by the Vice Minister of the Ministry of Ceremony, for an audience on the 6th. At the fifth watch on the 6th day, the imperial guards ranged themselves outside Wu Min. The emperor's entire retinue took their places, and the ceremony of assembly was performed while all the officers waited in readiness. In the glare of 100 torches, the prime minister arrived. Wu Min, the main gate, was opened, and the officials entered through the side gates. They proceeded through Feng Tian Gate to Feng Tian Palace, where heavenly music was being played, and they could barely hear the herald bid them take their places. A whip cracked 3 times, eunuchs trooped out of their inner palace wearing golden censers of ambergris, and palace maids with long-handled fans escorted the emperor to his throne. Then the officials hailed the Son of Heaven and prostrated themselves in obeisance. And Chuang, in a court cap and official robes, followed suit. After that, as the music ceased and the court was dismissed, 24 elephants with magnificent faces on their backs moved off by themselves. It was indeed as the poet once said, "Bright flowers smile on robes and swords of state, as stars grow dim on high, and willow leaves are brushed by silken flings before the dew is dry." So the officials dispersed. Chuang returned to his lodgings, removed his state robes, and was pacing up and down when Vice Minister Hisu called. Chuang went out to meet him in civilian dress, and tea was served. His Majesty's entry into the palace today was a rare ceremony, said Hisu. "I advise you to stay in your room, sir, for no doubt you will soon be summoned again." 3 days later, indeed, the following imperial edict was received. Let Chuang Shaoqiang appear at the inner court on the 11th, and let him be provided with a horse from the palace stables. On the 11th, Vice Minister Hisu saw Chuang to Wu Min, and waited in the waiting room while Chuang entered alone. 2 eunuchs led forward a horse from the imperial stable, and invited him to mount it, kneeling as he set foot on the stirrup. When he was in the saddle, they took the bridle. Even the reins were of the imperial yellow, and conducted him slowly through Chiangqing Gate. Chuang dismounted outside Hisuan Palace, and was announced by two eunuchs and ordered to advance. He entered, holding his breath, and saw the Son of Heaven in civilian costumes on his splendid throne. Chuang walked forward and prostrated himself. "We have reigned for 35 years, said the emperor. "During that time, thanks to heaven, earth, and our ancestors, the world has known peace, and there have been no disturbances within our borders. But not all our subjects are warmly clad and well fed, while even gentlemen have been unable to act in accordance with the principles of music and ceremony. We have summoned you all this way, sir, to ask what is of first importance in educating the people. We hope you will do your best to outline a plan for us. Do not hesitate to speak freely." As Chuang was about to reply, he felt a stab of pain on the top of his head. In agony, he bowed. "I thank your Majesty for this mark of favor," he replied, "but I cannot give you a detailed reply at once. Pray allow me to reflect carefully before submitting a memorial." "Very well," said the emperor. "You must draw up a plan for us. But we hope it'll be something practicable, according to the spirits of the ancients, while conforming with the customs of the present day." This said, he rose and withdrew. Chuang went out through Qin Palace, where eunuchs waiting with the same steed escorted him outside Wu Min. There, Vice Minister Hisu met him, accompanied him out of the forbidden city, then left him. The moment he was back in his lodgings, Chuang took off his cap. In it, he discovered a scorpion. So this was Chang Xiang, he laughed. "It does not seem as if our Confucian ways will avail in this age." The next day, upon rising, he burnt incense and washed his hands, then consulted the hexagrams. The answer he received was, "A hermit in the mountain." "Quite right," said Chuang. Then he drew up in detail 10 policies for educating the people, and wrote a request to be allowed to return home. He sent these documents to the Office of Transmission. After this, all the officials of the 9 ministers and 9 boards. After this, all the officials of the 9 ministries and 6 boards came to pay their respects. And though Chuang had little patience for such formalities, he had to return their calls. Then the Prime Minister approached Vice Minister Hisu. "His Majesty means to show great favor to this Mr. Chuang from Nanking," he said. "Why don't you bring him to see me, sir? I should like to have him as my pupil." The Vice Minister could not broach this directly to Chuang. He proposed it, however, in a roundabout fashion. "Since there is no Confucius in our age," said Chuang, "I have no desire to be any man's pupil. Besides, the Prime Minister has served so many times as Chief Examiner that he has innumerable members of the Hanlin Academy as his pupils. Why should he choose a rustic like myself? I dare not accept this honor." When Hisu reported this, the Prime Minister was angry. A few days later, in the palace, the Emperor consulted the Prime Minister. "We have studied Chuang Shaoqiang's 10 policies carefully," he said. "His learning is profound. Can he be made a chief minister?" Chuang Shaoqiang certainly possesses remarkable abilities," replied the Prime Minister. "The whole court and country rejoiced when your Majesty singled him out for special favor. There is, however, no precedent in our dynasty for appointing as minister a man who has not yet passed the metropolitan examination. And such an appointment might give rise to the belief that promotion depends upon chance. But let it be as your Majesty pleases." The Emperor sighed, then ordered the Prime Minister to decree, "Permission is hereby granted Chuang Shaoqiang to return home. Let him be given 500 taels from the imperial treasury, and let Lotus Lake in Nanking be presented to him, that he may continue writing to glorify this great age." After this decree was issued, Chuang went home once more to Wu Min to express his gratitude, then bade farewell to Vice Minister He Su, and prepared to go home. All the officials came to see him, and having taken his leave of them, he once more hired a carriage and drove out of Changyi Gate. Because it was a cold day, they covered a greater distance than usual and were unable to find an inn. They therefore drove up a small lane to a thatched cottage to ask for lodging. It was a single-roomed cottage in which an oil lamp was burning, and an old man of over 60 or 70 was standing at the gate. Chuang walked up and greeted him. "I am a traveler, Grandad, and have overshot the inn," he said. "If you will take me in for the night, I will pay for my lodging tomorrow." "What traveler carries his house with him, stranger?" responded the old man. I would willingly put you up, but I have only the one room where my wife and I, both of over 70, lived. And unhappily my old woman died this morning, and I have no money for a coffin, so her body is still in the house. How could you sleep, stranger? You have a carriage, too, which couldn't be taken inside." "That does not matter," replied Chuang. "All I need is space for one, so I have somewhere to sleep tonight. The carriage can stay at the gate." "In that case, you may share my bed," said the old man. "Very well," replied Chuang. Going inside, he saw the old woman's corpse lying stiff and stark on the ground beside the earthen can. He spread out his bedding, bade his servant and coachman sleep in the carriage, and urged the old man to take the inner half of the kang. But having laid himself down on the outer half, Chuang tossed and turned, unable to sleep. At midnight, the corpse began to stir. Chuang gave a start and gazed at it fixedly, and saw it spread its hands as if about to sit up. "She's alive!" he exclaimed. He hastily shook the old man, but could not wake him. How can an old fellow sleep so soundly?" he wondered. When he sat up to look, however, he discovered the old man's breathing had stopped, and he was dead. Turning round, he perceived that the old woman had risen stiffly to her feet, and was showing the whites of her eyes. She was not alive, but a walking corpse. In terror, Chuang rushed out, woke the coachman, and made him ram the carriage against the door to prevent her coming out. He then paced up and down outside alone. "All sorts of mishaps arise from activity," reflected Chuang ruefully. "Had I stayed quietly at home instead of traveling to the capital, I should have been spared this shock. Still, death comes to all. I must be lacking in my understanding of truth to be so easily alarmed." Calming himself, he sat down in the carriage till the day was bright, by which time the walking corpse had fallen to the ground, making two corpses lying stretched out in the cottage. "The poor old couple," said Chuang. "Though I simply spent the night here, if I don't bury them, who will?" He ordered the servant and coachman to find a village and brought 2 coffins for several dozen taels, and hired villagers to carry them to the cottage and lay out the corpses. Then he purchased a suitable plot of ground from a neighbor and supervised the old couple's burial. Finally, he brought offerings and paper money, wrote a funeral address, shed tears, and sacrificed. All the villagers came and bowed to the ground to thank him. Leaving Tea Chuang hired a fast boat, on which he was able to read to his heart's content. In a few days he reached Yangzhou and spent one day at the customs house waiting for a junk to take him down the Yangtze to Nanking. He had no sooner boarded the vessel the next morning than 24 smart sedan chairs drew up on the bank, and the salt merchants employed by the government in the Hue River area sent in their cards. Since the junk was small, Chuang invited 10 of them aboard first. Some, who were his relatives, addressed him as uncle, great-uncle, or cousin. After exchanging greetings, they all sat down. The man in the second seat was He Sao Po Chuan. "Though His Majesty wishes to make you a minister, you declined all official rank," said the merchant. "What nobility of mind this shows." "I understand Mr. Chuang's scruples," said He Sao Po Chuan. "With his rare gifts, he wishes to enter upon an official career the orthodox way, and looks down upon appointment by recommendation. He has come back now to wait for the next examination. Since the emperor knows him, he is sure to come first on the list." How can you speak of looking down on such an important institution as appointment by recommendation? Demanded Chuang with a smile. As to the next examination, I'm sure it is you who will come first, my friend. I shall be waiting in retirement to hear the good news. Will you be meeting the salt commissioners while you are here? Asked He Xiao. I am anxious to reach home, replied Chuang. My boat will be leaving soon. Then these 10 men took their leave and went ashore, and Chuang received the rest of his callers in 2 groups. He was beginning to be intensely irritated when the salt commissioners arrived, and after them the local salt gabble officials, the prefect of Yangchao and the magistrate of Jiangtu County. Fuming inwardly, he saw the last of his callers ashore, then ordered the junk to cast off at once. That evening, when the salt merchants brought 600 taels which they had raised between them for the expenses on the river, his junk had already gone so far that they could not overtake it. They had to carry their silver back. With a following wind, Chuang soon reached Swallow Cliff. Today I shall see the beauties of the Yangtze again, he cried in delight. He hired a boat with an awning, had his luggage carried aboard, and was rowed to the west gate where he engaged a porter. Then he walked home, bowed before his ancestors' shrines, and greeted his wife. I promise to be back in 3 months at most, possibly 2, he told her with a smile. What have you to say now? Was I telling the truth or not? His wife laughed. That evening they drank to celebrate his return. The next morning he had barely washed his face when the servant came in. Rita Cow of Li Ho is here, he said. Chuang went out to receive him. He had no sooner seen Rita Cow off than the provincial commissioner of finance called, the mayor called, the postman called, the postmaster called, and magistrate of Shangyuan and Jiangnan counties called, and the local gendry called. He was kept hard at it, changing into his black-sealed boots and changing out again, until at last he lost patience completely. This is too much, he declared to his wife. Since the court has presented me with Lotus Lake, why should I stay here where all these people give me no peace? Let us move to the lake as quickly as possible to enjoy ourselves in peace. No sooner said than done. They moved that same night to Lotus Lake. This was a huge lake, almost as large as the West Lake in Hangzhou. From the wall on its left, you could see Cock Crow Temple. Thousands of bushels of water chestnuts, lotus roots, lotus seeds, and caltrops were produced here every year. And there were 72 fishing boats, which every morning supplied the whole river with fish. 4 of the 5 big islands in the lake were fitted with libraries. And in the middle, with its immense garden and house containing dozens of rooms, became Chuang's home. In the garden were old trees, their trunks thicker than a man could encircle with his arms. And with plum, peach, pear, plantain, cassia, and chrysanthemums, there were flowers at every season. There was also a grove of tens of thousands of bamboos. Chuang's house had a large window on every side of which he could enjoy the lakeside scenery, as enchanting as fairyland. A boat was moored at his gate, and to visit any of the other islands he simply had to ferry across. But without this boat, not a soul could reach him. In this garden, then, Chuang lived. How lovely the lake and mountains look, he said one day with a smile to his wife, as they leaned over the balcony to watch the water. And all this is ours. We can enjoy ourselves here every day, unlike Tu Shaoqing, who has to take his wife to Qinglian Mountain to see the blossom. When at leisure, he would prepare wine and make his wife sit beside him and read Tu Shaoqing's commentary on the Book of Songs aloud. And at the best passages, he would drain a large cup and they would both laugh heartily. So he lived there without a care. One day, someone on the far bank hailed the boatman who rowed across. Going out to receive his guest, Chuang saw that it was Lu Hisian Ho. "I have been looking forward to meeting you ever since we parted on the road," said Chuang, delighted. "How did you find your way here?" "I went to your honorable house yesterday," replied Lu, "and I came on here today. You are living like an immortal. How I envy you." "We are completely cut off from the world here," said Chuang. "Although this is not Peach Blossom Stream, it comes very close to it. I hope you'll pay us a long visit, for next time you may not be able to find the way." Wine was served and they drank together till nearly midnight, when a servant came in. "Hundreds of troops are here from Prince Chongshan's residence," he announced breathlessly. "They've over 1,000 torches. They've seized all 72 fishing boats and ferried troops across to surround our garden completely." Chuang was greatly taken aback. Another servant came in. "There is a brigade general in the hall," he announced. Chuang went out and the general greeted him. "May I ask what my family has done?" inquired Chuang. "Your honorable household is in no way involved," replied the other. Then he whispered, Someone reported that Lu Hisin Ho has the works of Cao Ching Chu, which are banned, hidden in this house. We heard from the capital that this man has studied the military arts, so troops were sent out to arrest him. We traced him today to you, sir, and I am here to ask for him. I hope you will not let him know, for then he may attempt to escape." "Leave this to me, General," said Chuang. "Tomorrow I will ask him to give himself up and be responsible for seeing that he does." "If you say so, sir, that will be all right," replied the brigade general. "I will take my leave now." Chuang saw him out. The brigade general issued an order, and all the troops rode back to the other side of the lake. Lu Hsien Ho had heard the reason for their coming. "I am no coward," he said. "I wouldn't dream of running away and involving you. I'll give myself up tomorrow." "You'll have to spend a few days only in Gaol," said Chuang with a smile. "In less than a month, I guarantee you will be at liberty to enjoy yourself again." When Lu Hsien Ho had given himself up, Chuang sent over a dozen letters to various high officials at court. Then an order came down for Lu Hsien Ho's release, and the informer was punished instead. When Lu went to thank Chuang, the latter kept him as a guest. A couple of days later, 2 more visitors hailed the boat to ferry them to the island. Going out to welcome them, Chuang found Qi Hingshan and Tu Shaoqing. "Capital," cried Chuang and quoted, "While I am longing to talk with you, you arrive." He asked them into a pavilion overlooking the lake, and Qi told him that they hoped to settle the ceremony in music for Taipo's temple. Chuang feasted for a whole day, and they drew up a detailed plan of the ceremony and music to be used, which Chiyu took back with him. Chuang feasted them for a whole day, and they drew up a detailed plan of the ceremony and music to be used, which Qi took back with him. Soon New Year came and went. In the middle of the 2nd month, Qi Hingshang invited Ma Chun Shang, Chu He Xianfu, Qi Wei He Xiao, He Xiao Qin He Sun, and Qin Teng Ya to meet in the Tu Shaoqing's riverside house to discuss the sacrifice at Taipo's temple. "Whom shall we find as master of ceremony?" they asked. "We shall be sacrificing to a very great sage," replied Qi. "The master of ceremonies should be a sage himself to be worthy of Taipo. That is the kind of man we must find. Whom have you in mind?" Raising his fist and 2nd fingers, Qi told them the man's name. But to learn his name, you must read the next chapter.